sister-in-law pressed an eviction lawsuit into my chest at my father's memorial gala. Leave the estate. You were never truly one of us. The champagne in my glass was still bubbling over the crystal rim. My pulse pounded in my ears. My husband stood beside his sister, hands shoved in his tuxedo pockets, staring at the polished floor as if it held all the answers. Since Miles refuses to handle this, I am taking charge, she declared, her voice slicing through the gentle string quartet playing in the background. This charade of a marriage is done. You have drained our goodwill for the last time. My fingers gripped the heavy cardstock tightly. I was completely paralyzed, caught somewhere between utter devastation and boiling fury. Looking back, that paralysis was my mind desperately processing a betrayal my heart refused to accept. She tilted her chin down at me. You were a glorified receptionist. You manipulated him into this. Now you plan to capitalize on your father's passing. A sharp screech of microphone feedback echoed through the banquet hall, making everyone wince. I looked toward the stage, confused as to why the lead forensic accountant for our charity was standing at the podium instead of the event coordinator. He tapped the mic twice. Excuse the interruption. Mr. Reed's voice boomed across the vaulted ceiling. But I need security at the front doors. Immediately. Candace smirked, assuming this was part of the scheduled programming. I just stood there, clutching the papers. Mr. Reed didn't look at the crowd. He looked directly at our table. First, he stated, the property transfer documents filed this morning are entirely fraudulent. Then, Candace scoffed, but it sounded hollow, and nobody joined in. Next, Mr. Reed announced, you falsified your brother's signature on the trust deeds last week. After that, my husband finally looked up, his jaw dropping. Then, Candace's smug expression melted into absolute panic. Next, Mr. Reed added, the bank's fraud department is already on the line with authorities. And then he delivered the final blow. Detectives are pulling into the ballet circle right now. Candace's voice trembled. I was securing our family's assets. Mr. Reed stared her down from the stage. Fascinating excuse, considering you also attempted to wire the $4.5 million charitable endowment into an offshore holding company an hour ago. The entire ballroom gasped in unison. My husband grabbed his sister's shoulder, his fingers digging into her silk dress. What did you actually do? He choked out. Candace stumbled backward into a cocktail table, her pearl necklace rattling against the glass. She doesn't belong here, she hissed, pointing a trembling finger at me. She would have ruined our reputation. That was the exact second I understood her cruelty was never about protecting her brother. It was sheer, unadulterated greed. It gets worse, Mr. Reed continued, holding up a thick red folder. The employee pension fund for the estate. She liquidated it on Tuesday. Every single cent is gone. My husband let out a guttural, wretched gasp. He stepped toward her, his fists clenched, but a groomsman from our wedding stepped in to block him. You robbed the staff, he screamed. People who watched us grow up? Candace pointed at me again, desperate and wild. She forced me to do it. She was extorting us. Nobody is extorting anyone, my husband yelled, his voice cracking horribly. I turned to face her, a bizarre sense of calm washing over me. Stop calling me a receptionist like it means I'm stupid, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. I managed the logistics for a multinational firm while you lived off an allowance. I balanced the estate's books while you called me trash behind my back. My husband stared at me, wide-eyed, like he was looking at a stranger. I couldn't tell if he was stunned by the reality of the theft or simply shocked that I was finally fighting back. Mr. Reed's voice dropped to a somber register. I have already surrendered the digital trails to the feds. Wire fraud, grand larceny, identity theft. The warrants were signed 20 minutes ago. When the detectives walked through the brass doors, Candace tried to slip away through the catering exit. Her expensive heels caught on the heavy rug, and she crashed hard into a floral arrangement. The officers handcuffed her right there against the marble pillar, while she shrieked that I was a parasite ruining their dynasty. My husband collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands, weeping openly. I had no idea she was doing this, he sobbed. You never cared enough to look, I replied, stepping away from him. There is a massive difference. That was the moment I realized his passive avoidance was just another form of betrayal. The fallout was swift and merciless. Federal indictments, asset seizures, and a media circus. I filed for divorce the very next morning, treating it purely as an administrative task. I instructed my attorneys to liquidate my share of the marital assets and donate it straight back to the pension fund. I refused to keep a single dime that felt tainted by her greed. During the federal trial, the prosecutors displayed the IP logs, the forged notarizations, and the security footage from the bank. Candace sat at the defense table in a drab gray blouse, blinking like she couldn't believe consequences actually applied to her. Full story on the channel, link below.